Just like last week when I covered the AFC, this week we're talking NFC, the top 5 teams heading into the season. Let's go. Starting things off at number 5, it's the Minnesota Vikings of the NFC North. They're my favorites to win the division going into this upcoming season, having a really strong 2022 campaign where they really were able to secure some very slim margin victories, winning a number of their games, the majority of their games in fact, by a margin of 1 touchdown or less, and in a number of cases even less than 4 points. And the Minnesota Vikings were able to win a lot of these clutch, close games, and that does count for something. Now, they also happen to have the defending Offensive Player of the Year in Justin Jefferson, a huge addition for this offense, and then adding to him, replacing Adam Thielen in the NFL draft, Jordan Addison out of USC. I really like Jordan Addison. Coming out of USC, really shifty, a very strong underneath kind of player with some good speed, but very shifty, twitchy, shows really good route running ability and solid hands. I think he's going to play very well in the number 2 wide receiver role opposite of Justin Jefferson. But with Kirk Cousins leading the way, a historically very accurate passer, I expect the Vikings to be a very pass-heavy team. All the expectations this offseason have led to them letting go of Dalvin Cook, trying to find trade partners for Dalvin Cook. Looks like Alexander Mattison is going to be their primary running back going into this upcoming season. So their offensive slate is pretty much set, but let's talk about what the Vikings still need to improve on and why they're just number 5 on my list. There's a number of things that they really need to address. Let's start and stay on the offense here. The offensive line. The offensive line last year was a bottom 10 unit in the NFL, allowing over 45 sacks during the season, allowing Kirk Cousins to be hit quite often, and honestly, that's a huge detriment to the game. If the Vikings offensive line can play and perform better this upcoming season, I think they're going to have a much better and much more comfortable path in the Aaron Rodgers-less NFC North. But the other side of the football, the defense as a whole, one of the worst units in the entire NFL. The big addition in my eyes this offseason for the defense being Brian Flores to be the next defensive coordinator for these Minnesota Vikings. Brian Flores obviously has a lot of experience as a marquee defensive coach, spent a lot of time in New England as a play caller, Miami Dolphins as their head coach, and Pittsburgh last season, working very closely with their defense. So Brian Flores is going to be huge. I think he's going to bring an added aggressive chip to this Vikings defensive shoulder. I think Brian Flores is probably the biggest move, arguably, for the Minnesota Vikings this offseason. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. I have high hopes for them. It's going to be very interesting to see who just comes out on top. Obviously, new quarterback leading the way for the Packers and Jordan Love. The Chicago Bears building up that team as we speak. The Detroit Lions, very strong competitors as well within the division. But right now, the way I see it, it's the Vikings division to lose. They come in at number 5. Number 4, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are probably one of the more slept-on teams in the entire NFL right now. They have an incredibly talented and very explosive offensive attack. Obviously, Geno Smith getting a new deal to be the franchise face of the Seattle Seahawks organization for the next few seasons, at least for the next 3. And then, of course, on that offense, you've got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker walking into his 2nd season as the starting running back, and of course drafting Jackson Smith and Jigba out of Ohio State with their round 1 draft pick. But also in that first round, drafting arguably the best cornerback in this year's NFL draft, Devin Witherspoon, to play opposite of Tariq Woolen, who had a very impressive rookie season last year, alongside of Kobe Bryant, who also had a very impressive rookie season last year, in a secondary that already has Jamal Adams, who can walk up into the box and play almost linebacker-like, as well as Quandre Diggs, the other safety playing opposite of him. So this team defensively looks really strong in the secondary, at least very exciting in the secondary, but then reacquiring the future Hall of Famer in Bobby Wagner is going to be massive for this defense. I'm very excited to see just what the Seattle Seahawks unit as a whole can bring to the table. From the linebackers back, look, they've got a very impressive pass defense, right? As far as the pass rush, we're going to see exactly how it comes out in full, but on the offensive side of the things, right? Talked a lot about those weapons in the first chunk of this section, but The weakness of the Seattle Seahawks unit as of the moment is still the offensive line. It's been an issue for them for largely the last decade, not displaying a bottom 10 offensive line, I think only one time in the last decade, if I'm not mistaken. So one of the bottom 10 units last year, going into this upcoming season, while playing admirably with 2 rookie offensive tackles. Hopefully they have improved. The offensive line still wasn't largely addressed. No marquee names on that offensive line, so we're going to have to see how things develop there. But the Seattle Seahawks, though, explosive offense, a lot of really good pieces on defense. They're my number 4 in the NFC. My number 3 team going into this upcoming season, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Dallas Cowboys have a lot of talent on both sides of the football. One of the best well-rounded rosters in the entire NFL right now, at least on paper anyway. Had a really strong offseason, getting Brandon Cooks as well as Stephon Gilmore via trade, and then Mazi Smith in the NFL draft to shore up the interior of the defensive line. The Achilles heel of the defense last year, allowing a lot of run yardage, but their passing defense superb and got even better, adding a former defensive player of the year opposite of Trayvon Diggs. So the pass rush, obviously, with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be the marquee for this Dallas Cowboys defense, keeping Dan Quinn after last year's performance as well. Their defensive coordinator is massive for this Dallas Cowboys defense. So it looks like going into this year, they're going to remain hyper aggressive, but having Gilmore and Diggs on the outside gives them an opportunity to be even more aggressive as far as turnover potential. Both those guys very familiar with getting their hands on the ball and creating turnovers and creating opportunities for the Dallas Cowboys offense, which Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, very well-rounded, very strong passing attack potential. They don't necessarily have that thunder back, so to speak, in the backfield at the moment, losing Ezekiel Elliott, letting him go during free agency. But I expect them to be passing the ball quite a bit this upcoming season. I'm sure they're going to find ways to run the ball. Historically, Dallas has been a very strong running attack as well. I don't necessarily think that's going to go anywhere in the beginning of the season. However, they've had health issues on this offensive line for years now, have been able to cobble together some Swiss Army knife style offensive lines. So what concerns me, the biggest concern that I have for the Dallas Cowboys, at least one of them, being offensive line longevity. Terrence Steele suffered a torn ACL last season, has still not recovered quite yet. So Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith playing the tackle positions. The interior of the offensive line, obviously Zach Martin, Tyler Biadasz as well. So that left guard position, that left guard role, still kind of up in the air as we speak, but trying to figure out the longevity for this team. Tyron Smith obviously had his health issues over the last few seasons as well. I think they probably could have addressed the offensive line a little bit more during this offseason, maybe in the NFL draft, only taking one offensive lineman out of UNC, Asim Richards, if I'm not mistaken. So the Dallas Cowboys, very well-rounded roster. On paper, they look very good, but I think the biggest Achilles heel they have walking into this upcoming season could very well be health. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have put together some fantastic squads, some Super Bowl competing level squads over the last few years. Offensively, you've got weapons like Christian McCaffrey leading the way, Deebo Samuel on the outside, Brandon Ayuk, a wonderful complement, one of the best tight ends in the NFL currently, George Kittle, and then on the offensive line, arguably the best offensive lineman in the entire NFL in Trent Williams. The biggest question mark for the San Francisco 49ers, let's just get it out of the way, tear the Band-Aid off, is the quarterback situation. Who is going to be the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers? Brock Purdy, down the stretch, the number 3 quarterback on the roster last year, played very admirably, didn't lose a game until the postseason, and didn't make a ton of mistakes, honestly. That's the kind of offense that Kyle Shanahan needs, a guy who's not going to make mistakes, get the ball to the playmakers, and score points and allow the defense to work and cook things up. Now, on the other side, you've got the former number 3 overall pick in Trey Lance, who adds an extra running attack, option for this offense, theoretically speaking. Suffered a bad ankle injury last year. Should be good to go as far as I know for the upcoming season. I mean, comment if you want to correct me on that. But Trey Lance, the potential obviously there, the former number 3 overall pick. We really haven't had a chance to really, chew on his game yet at the NFL level, because sitting his rookie year, finally getting to start, getting hurt. So some question marks for Trey Lance, but let's get back to the rest of the squad, right? Offensively, there's a ton of talent there. They're usually in the upper half of the NFL as far as offensive efficiency for sure. Defensively, losing another defensive coordinator, first Robert Saleh to the New York Jets, and now DeMeco Ryans, the new head coach of the Houston Texans. This aggressive defensive play style that Kyle Shanahan has helped foster with some very talented minds on the defensive coordinating staff now has a new play caller. That's another thing that's kind of wary to me. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to look, but I imagine with guys like Nick Bosa, with guys like Eric Armstead, Greenlaw, Warner, Hufanga, this defense has a ton of talent. I expect them to be hyper aggressive once again. I think the San Francisco 49ers, either of those quarterbacks could probably walk in and play very well. Shanahan's going to do his best to accommodate the strengths and nullify the weaknesses of anybody on his squad. Kyle Shanahan's an incredibly talented coach, still looking for the big one, still looking for that Super Bowl, but the San Francisco 49ers are about as tough as any team in the NFL in my mind. They're number 2 in the NFC. And last but certainly not least, and very predictably, it's the Philadelphia Eagles at number 1. Of course, Jalen Hurts last year had a phenomenal performance, almost winning the NFL MVP, being beaten out by Patrick Mahomes, and taking this team to the Super Bowl, right? Plays massive for the Philadelphia Eagles. Had a very strong performance in said Super Bowl, so the talent is absolutely there. He earned a massive contract this offseason, now the number 2 highest paid quarterback in the NFL post Lamar Jackson deal. Around the rest of that offense though, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, trading for DeAndre Swift from the Detroit Lions. They've got a ton of offensive playmakers, an offensive line unit that's very, very, very strong, has a number of great players in the center, Jason Kelce, a future Hall of Famer, and then looking around to the defense where they made a massive splash in the NFL draft at number 9, snagging Jalen Carter, a potential number 1 pick, sliding because of some off-the-field stuff. He's going to be teaming up with Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis, Robert Quinn, Hassan Reddick, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Robert Quinn's on the squad. Whatever. Look, the pass rush is still going to be there, right? They've got a number of incredibly talented pass rushers. The secondary last year ate a bunch after the opportunities given to them by that front pass rush. 70+ sacks, if I'm not mistaken. Look, the Eagles are going to be coming at you very aggressively. Sirianni has built up a very strong, aggressive culture on both sides of the football. My biggest question for them is going to be the lack of coordinators, right? Obviously, Shane Steichen leaving for the Indianapolis Colts head coaching job, Jonathan Gannon going to Arizona. So losing those 2 coordinators, losing those 2 play callers is going to be massive. I'm really curious to see how the Eagles are going to approach this upcoming season, trying to fill in those holes left behind. But as of the moment, they got the best squad, in my opinion. They have the best team. They have a very well-rounded roster, a very aggressive offense. And look, Philadelphia Eagles right now, you got to beat the king to be the king. Right now, they're the kings of the NFC. I'm curious to see if they'll regress at all going into this upcoming season, but I think the Eagles are pretty much set. I think they got a very strong squad. And on the outside looking in, just to highlight a few teams, I already mentioned the Detroit Lions. They could very well be competing for the NFC North title. It's pretty much wide open as we speak. The Lions last year, over the last couple of years, have grown immensely, looked a lot stronger. I like the direction they're going in. They're rallying behind Dan Campbell consistently. The Detroit Lions could very well be a very interesting team going into this upcoming season. The New Orleans Saints right now, I haven't mentioned the NFC South because right now it's still kind of a nothing division, but the New Orleans Saints still have a very strong roster from top to bottom. Derek Carr, a big splash for them this offseason. If he can bring some general efficiency and some big plays to this Saints offense, I think they're going to run the NFC South, and who knows how much further they can get within the NFC conference. And then the last team I wanted to highlight, the New York Giants. Brian Daboll, the maestro behind the New York Giants, playing a big part. They didn't make a ton of moves this offseason, but having him as the head coach, solidifying their quarterback in Daniel Jones for the future, Saquon Barkley playing on the tag this upcoming season, I think the Giants could very well be in a position to replicate at least what they did in 2022. So thank you so much for watching the video. Of course, feel free to stick around and watch some more content. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and of course, get the bell on to know every single time I'm dropping a video. My name's Tristan Blake Rines. Catch you in the next one. Adios.